I told you I'm not here to mess around, and you've been acting too mysterious.
Hi there, my name is Katharina Moonchild. I am a psychic medium, a shamanic soul worker, and a Reiki master, as well as a teacher. I've been doing this for 20 years. If you haven't seen me before, welcome to my channel. This video was actually created for a request at the request of Sid. I love you, Sid. Thank you so much for asking for this video. This video is going to be based on tips for channel. I've been getting asked quite frequently, can you give us tips on how you channel as a medium? Can you give us information and advice on how to do mediumship? Now, most of what I learned as a medium was natural and self-taught, so I'm going to give you the tips and tools and tricks I learned in order to make that connection. Now, one of the things we want to remember when we're talking about mediumship is a psychic ability. The first thing we want to understand is that it's clairaudient, and that is the hearing. A lot of people mistake hearing as out loud. All psychic experiences are things that happen internally to us. Very frequently, we do not experience something in the physical. We experience it in the emotional, mental realm, which is the most common experience that we have when we're dealing with mediumship. Now, moving forward, what you're going to be looking at is your internal experience of what it feels like to be in channel. When you're in channel, you want to recognize when you're in spirit first and foremost. Channel is something that most people think of as trance mediumship. The difference between trance mediumship and regular mediumship is when trance mediumship occurs, a medium allows a spirit to step into their body and allows their consciousness to move to the background and allows the consciousness of a spirit who has departed into the forefront. And this is actually been discussed that this may be something that's actually unhealthy on the physical body, or something that can be something that is not very safe in practice. So when we're dealing with trance mediumship, it's best to be done under the discretion of guidance of somebody who is experienced and done in a learned setting. Now, if you're dealing with trance mediumship naturally and you feel like you have no control over it, I do suggest that you seek out classes, and I do suggest you look at forums or Facebook groups on guidance and advice on how to deal with this appropriately. Remember, you're the one who has permission for what occurs to you psychically, so set down those boundaries and work with those permissions. And if you're still having trouble after so, please feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to look at my bio. You can go to my website and ask for additional information on how to protect yourself psychically. Thank you so much. Now, moving on, regular mediumship is something that actually occurs in our mental realm first and foremost strongly. So what I noticed when I was dealing with mediumship as a young person, I noticed that all of the information was coming through as thought. That thought was coinciding with things that were actually occurring or things that were actual information. The way I started noticing that I was connecting to spirits, and most of the time the spirit were non-human spirits, and there's a difference between human mediumship and the frequency that we deal with when we're dealing with non-human spirits. It is a different vibration, so that's something else to keep in mind. When I was dealing with spirit guides, which was the first form of mediumship I was experiencing, and I was talking to primarily starseed entities and interdimensional entities and angelic entities, I felt a sense of lightness. So there was an emotional experience that connected to the mental experience. It was an emotional feeling of comfortability and trust. So when we're dealing with entities that are in our higher vibration, we do have a sense on almost an instinctual level of what that is that we're dealing with. We'll be able to feel internally if we're feeling uncomfortable, not because of just the fact that we are experiencing something new and something different, but we're actually experiencing a deep level of discomfort. It really comes from this deep, deep place that's probably an entity you don't want to be allowing access to your being. We have a mental door. This is more like when we think of a telephone. We can pick up the call or we can decline the call. That is something that we are in control of. A lot of people don't realize that they actually have control over the information that comes through as a psychic. And if we start understanding that the information that we're receiving as a psychic is actually information, we start understanding our relationship to our psychic ability a lot differently. But before I had this awareness, I realized that what was happening in my thought processes is I would ask a question that I had no answer to, and I would ask myself that question, but I would get an answer. And one day I realized, how am I getting this information? Where is this information coming from? Because it was something that I was naturally born with. It was something that took me until I was about 15 or 16 before I started opening my eyes to realize the interference. Before, I had thought it was just imagination, which is very common for most psychics to believe. They believe that the information they're getting is just imaginary, or they're making it up, because this is the natural way that they process reality. So there's so many natural psychics that are very, very gifted coming through that they just think that the information they receive is something that they realize on their own, or information that they've come to on their own, a conclusion they've come to on their own, because it is the way that we process the world, we think about the world, and we interact with the world. And that's what it's like to be a natural psychic. So the first thing you want to understand is get a very clear mental relationship with how you naturally interact and process, so you can start telling the difference between when information is introduced to you and when you're just processing what's in front of you. This is the difference between your human experience and what is being channeled. And like I said before, channeling isn't just trance mediumship. Channeling is any form of energy running through our body, through our chakra system. Channeling exists as something that comes usually from our crown chakra and moves through us. It may be empathy, where we're channeling the emotions of somebody else. It may be healing ability, where we're channeling the healing energy that we're supplying to somebody else. This is something to keep in mind when we're referring to channel, because sometimes there's misunderstandings around that. So when you're first going into channeling and you're learning to connect to your mediumship ability, which is clear audience and hearing, which not every psychic has as a gift, pay attention to your thoughts. The way I learned to understand my internal voice for my internal monologue was I started thinking of my thoughts as reading a book. When I read a book, I noticed that I would try to take on the tone of voice in my mind of the author of the book I was reading. I would go into the experience of reading the book, so I would move away from my natural dialogue and try to pretend the dialogue in my mind of what the characters would sound like, or what the author sounded like as they were writing the book. And that's how I first started noticing my natural capability as a psychic medium, and I started being able to tell the difference between higher, lower vibration. I also started getting a sense of surround sound. Where was it coming from? Sometimes it felt like it was coming from the back, sometimes it was coming from the front, sometimes it felt like it was whispered near my ear, sometimes it seemed very loud, sometimes it seemed very quiet. Loudness really took precedence and was very obvious, because there would be times I would have my music blasting as a teenager, so I could drown out the sound of everything around me, even the inside of my own mind. And there would be times where I could hear the voice of spirit over my music, even though I couldn't even hear myself think because my music was so loud. And that's just part of the process. You start noticing these differences, and that's where we start noticing things like texture and sound as we start getting familiar. So when we're first going into channel, what we feel is we feel light and clear, centered, relaxed, and we're present in the moment with no thoughts. When we're first connecting with mediumship, it's really important that we're not thinking about what we're thinking, because the mediumship is a thought process. It's a conversation. We're having a conversation. So even if we have like an imagined conversation where we're thinking about having a conversation with someone and we're imagining the way it goes, that's kind of the way that we want to begin connecting to the dialogue that's being presented to us. So if we have a spirit talk to us and say, I'm asking my spirit to give me an example, how are you doing today? How do you feel today? I will tell my spirit guide, I'm feeling tired today. My spirit guide may say, why don't you have some water then, and remind me of the things that I physically need to do for myself in order to put myself in a space of wellness and well-being. There will be times that we hear things that are inaccurate based on how much we want the answer to be a certain way. High vibrational spirits will not lie to us, but we may misinterpret or misunderstand what's being told to us if our emotions are very strong that day. So when we're connecting with spirit channeling and mediumship, it's really important that we are in a space of calm and centered objectivity. If you're feeling very stressed, it's best to try to practice the mediumship. If you're very tired, it's best not to, because your natural protections are also really, really down at that time. That's why a lot of people will suggest meditate when they're talking about learning how to do mediumship, because they're trying to teach you how to quiet your mind and how to hear what's being said. And I can hear one of my spirits trying to talk to me. What I sense as my spirit is trying to talk to me is I can sense a sense of pressure, or I can sense them touch me. Not all spirits will touch, because a lot of people get freaked out by touch, but physical sensation is one of the ways that I receive messages as medium. So when I'm hearing my spirit is saying, please remind them to also be aware of their physical expressions. So connecting with that, we want to think of mediumship as a whole body experience, because we're not just getting the thought processes. I might just get one message that is a sentence, and also see something, and also feel something. There's very often when I connect as a medium where I get no word, because sometimes spirits on the other side cannot express themselves or do not know how to talk to us. So we may actually get empathetic feelings. That self-awareness of what we are experiencing as a whole entity is really, really important. And it's important we don't disregard any of the information that's coming through our system. So I may hear something like, you have to remind them of the physical expression, and then see something touch the back of my neck and remind me that some people get chills as confirmation. That's something that I just experienced, so the spirit could help me give you an example of how that may occur. You may feel something in the pit of your stomach, which will let you know that maybe the spirit entity that you're dealing with, especially if it's something like a human spirit, is struggling at that time. So that will give us an idea of where they are at in their transition process. When we're connecting to a human spirit, do we feel heavy? Do we feel light? Do we feel sad? Because sometimes when we're connecting to a spirit, it really leaves us more vulnerable emotionally. It's such a pure experience. We may cry because the spirit that we're talking to, that is expressing themselves, are in a place of grief. We may feel the sensation of what they're experiencing emotionally, what they're going through. We may physically or emotionally feel their regret. We may physically feel the discomfort that they experienced when they passed, but not everyone is a physical medium and not everyone is a physical empath, so it's not necessary to be concerned about those experiences. What's important is that we're letting it come in and we're letting it go. The way you tell that you're first going into channel is that you can feel quiet and a sense of peace. You're light. When I first start connecting with human spirits, I usually see darkness. A lot of people see white light. I see that as the space that is in between, or the corner of the veil. I am both here and there. I am connecting to a place in the spirit world that I term the void, but some people may call it the in-between. Some people may call it purgatory. There's a lot of different names for that space that they may refer to. This is a space I see as a space of meeting. That place may look like many different things for many different people, because the way that I connect to mediumship is I see it as I astral travel, or I go into the spirit world to connect to that person. That is the way I naturally channel mediumship. Other mediums for me have said that the way that they connect to spirits is all claircognizance. It's knowing, it's clairaudient, and it's hearing with no clairvoyance. They see nothing. So every experience is different. So it's really important that you are aware as a psychic of how you connect. When you're thinking and all this information is coming through your mental realm, and you're receiving messages in your mental space, it's really important that you're not thinking about what you're thinking when you're first beginning. You sometimes have to analyze what you were told to understand it, or ask questions in a dialogue to get clarity, which is very common. But it's not to think about it in fear, because then you block yourself. We can try too hard. Flow is the most important part of the experience. So when you're beginning this work, doing something like a meditation and doing a prayer of intention to protect yourself is also very important, because it gets you in the mind space and the head space to be able to connect. If meditation's very hard for you and you're crafty, try creating something before you practice mediumship. Try painting a picture. And then when you feel a sudden urge to stop in the middle of the painting, try practicing your mediumship then. Because a lot of people, when they're doing art, get in the zone. And it helps them connect to that space that we talk about, where it's very timeless and we're not connecting to the things that are occurring on a physical, with the sense of being everywhere. We're here, we're present, and the world kind of goes away. And that's the exact experience we want to be having when we're in mediumship. And just like anything else, it's really important that we're not exposing ourselves to any energy that's coming through. Always make sure that you're trying to practice in either sacred space or after you've set your intention prayer, because there are energies that are not healthy, just like with human spirits. And it's really important that when we're thinking about connecting to spirits and we're learning mediumship, that it's just like regular people. We're not going to talk to just anyone that is around us. We may not talk to someone that it sets us on edge or makes us feel uncomfortable, because what that shows us is that there's something in that individual that we are not comfortable with. So make sure you remember that in mediumship, it's really important that you're having boundaries, that you're not allowing any spirit access to your energy, because when they have access to their energy, they can affect your energy. So some people are concerned about mediumship because what they see is that they may be exposed to energies that they don't want exposed to. As long as you remember you're protected, and as long as you remember to keep up your protections, as long as you're working with your spirit guides or angels, you will be protected. A common protection that is used in my lineage and in my tribe is called Warakocha. And it's literally like the white light bubble that everyone talks about, but we use gold light and we pull from the 8th chakra, which is called our soul star chakra, and pull it down around us in a bubble all the way down to our feet, and that insulates our entire field with the gold light of spirit. White light and gold light are very common. So also when you're connecting with mediumship, you may get a sense of lightness, like bright light in spirit, because that is a sign of spirit itself. Moving forward in your mediumship practice, just remember, remain clear. Don't be afraid. Put up your protection and allow yourself to remember it's a whole body experience. If you are concerned about your accuracy, I encourage that you write down unfiltered whatever your experience is. Some of my weirdest messages I've gotten from spirits were things like a hamster and Mario, like the video game Mario, and it was all accurate. The messages we receive are not for us, as long as we remember, most importantly, that we are just there to act as a cell phone for someone who doesn't have that cell phone, so we can provide that guidance to someone else and help them with their grief. We're doing our job. Mediumship is an experience to help other people bridge the here and the there. Mediumship truly is a bridge, truly is a door. We are learning a language, or we understand a language that somebody else doesn't, so we are acting as translators. It's like being an interpreter for someone who is deaf by learning American Sign Language, where we're giving them the messages that they know that they can't hear. That's all we're doing. The people that we are assisting with spirit language cannot hear, are deaf to those words, but we are not. So we provide them that healing ability by connecting to those that have left this plane. As long as we're also remembering the people that we're connecting to in spirit are still people. They still have their emotional experiences, most of the time, because every situation is different, but most of the time, as long as we remember, they have their emotional experiences, their consciousness, and there are 1,000 million billion different types of people. So every spirit we come across will be different, and every spirit we will deal with will be different. But they are people too. So sometimes they have good emotions, sometimes they have bad emotions, sometimes they've had a hard life, sometimes they've had a great life. And it's with compassion and consideration that we're dealing with the spirits that we are connecting with, because they have their story too, just like the person in front of us. Sometimes there will be times that the person in front of us is in less grief than the spirit that we are assisting. This is not just closure for the person that we're assisting as a medium. This is closure for the spirit that we are assisting as well. And as long as you're remembering that, you're on a good track to practicing your mediumship. Mediumship takes time, dedication, and letting go. Allow the flow to occur. Allow your experience to happen. Again, write things down. If from brain to paper, no filter, don't think about it. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about capitalization. Don't worry about grammar. Just get it out as fast as possible to help teach you how you are connecting to your own gift. Blessings to you. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. All those things can be found at the end of the video. So much love to you. Blessings to you. I'll talk to you later.